Guys, breaking news. On Tuesday, February the 3rd, 2026, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of the erstwhile leader of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, was shot dead in Zintan in western Libya. Libya is a broken country. After the Western intervention in 2011, Libya has never remained the same. So today's live stream section, we're talking about what happened in Libya and the killing of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of Muammar Gaddafi, the erstwhile leader of Libya. So let's break this down so that you guys can understand the context. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi has been considered the number 2 leader in Libya before 2011, when his father was killed by the so-called revolutionary forces and NATO that bombed Libya, that took him out in the town of Set, which is his hometown of Muammar Gaddafi, basically. So Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, like I said, the son of the long-time former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, has been killed in Libya. Now, Ahmed Khalifa is the one that broke this story earlier on, and there are other news outlets as well that you can find out. An Al Jazeera Arabic correspondent in North Africa said on Tuesday that Gaddafi is believed to have been shot dead and killed in the western Libyan city of Zintan, where he was based for over 1 decade. Well, since 2011 to 2016, he was based in Zintan. And I'll give you a background of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi. He's 53 years old, and the killing was confirmed by his political advisor, Abdullah Othman, but the exact circumstances of his death remain unclear. Khalid al-Mishri, the former head of the Tripoli-based High State Council, an international recognized government body, called for an urgent and transparent investigation into the killing of in a social media post on Tuesday. Gaddafi never held an official position in Libya, but was considered to be his father's number 2 from the year 2000. So this is the background to it. Okay, so I want you guys to understand that. And when Muammar Gaddafi was killed in 2011 during the Libyan opposition uprising that ended his decades of rule, Gaddafi was captured and imprisoned in Zintan by a rebel group, based there, that are mostly made of Tuareg extraction in the Tibet mountain. I don't know how they call it. So he was basically captured and imprisoned in Zintan in 2011 after attempting to flee the North African country following the opposition's takeover of Tripoli. He was released in 2017 as part of the general pardon. Of course, he was released in 2017. Now, what prominent role did he serve? If you look at his background, Western educated, well-spoken man, Gaddafi presented the progressive face of the Libyan regime run by his father. He played a leading role in a drive towards modernity, quote unquote, meaning Western modernity, and to repair Libya's relations with the West beginning from the early 2000s, because he schooled in the West. He received a PhD from the London School of Economics and Political Science. In 2008, with his dissertation looking into the role of civil society in reforming global governance. So he's Western educated, he has a pedigree, a background, because he schooled in the West, and he was calling for the government in Libya to Westernize, to be more closer to the West, even arguing, and if you look at what led up to the standoff between the West and Libya, the fact that Gaddafi was looking to build nuclear weapons and stuff like that. And, he was, advised to shun them so that they can normalize ties with the West. And we have seen this before, countries that have tried to do this, you normalize with the West and eventually the leader is kicked out. Gaddafi remained prominent throughout the violence that gripped the country in the wake of the Arab Spring. Speaking to Reuters news agency in the time of the popular uprising in Libya in 2011, he said, "We will fight here in Libya, we will die here in Libya." He warned that rivers of blood will flow and that the government will fight to the last man and woman and bullet. So this is the position of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi. He warned that if the West continues with the attempt to remove Muammar Gaddafi that this will happen, that there will be rivers of blood. All of Libya will be destroyed. We will need 40 years to reach an agreement on how to run the country. I mean, if you look at it, it's not wrong. 40 years. If there's anything he said that is wrong, I want you to point it out. He warned about the violence that will emerge as a result of this attempt by the West to again westernize. And this is why when I make my case about Iran, not everybody wants to hear it, because people have like different ideas on what they believe should be done when it comes to Iran. If you look at what they did in Libya, you say you have this dictator, this tyrant there, but what you have done is that you have replaced him with different warlords that run different areas in Libya, which Saif al-Islam Gaddafi warned around 2010 and 11, that if this happened, there'll be rivers of blood. Of course, we've seen rivers of blood in Libya, and of course, we have seen the disintegration of the state in Libya. And most importantly, he warned that it would take 30 to 40 years to have, to sort of rebuild the country. Well, we're on track. We're on track for that. Maybe not 40 years, or maybe it could be more than 40 years, because this is like 14, 15 years already after the overthrow of the Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi. So we're almost close to midway of, his prophecy, if you like. Because today everyone wants to be president or emir, and everybody wants to run the country, he said. Gaddafi faced numerous allegations of torture and extreme violence against opponents of his father's rule, and by February 2011, he was on a United Nations sanctions list and was banned from traveling out of the country. He was also wanted by the International Criminal Court, the ICC, for alleged crimes against humanity committed in Libya in 2011. Following long negotiations with the ICC, Libyan officials were granted authority to try Gaddafi for alleged war crimes. And in 2015, a Libyan court sentenced him to death in absentia. Sentenced him to death in absentia. After his release from detention in 2017, he spent years underground in Zintan to avoid assassination. From 2016, he was allowed to contact people inside and outside Libya, said Mustafa Feturi, a Libyan analyst with contacts in Gaddafi's inner circle. It's crazy, man. And like I said, if you look at what really happened with him, this it's a sad story. The reports said he was shot and killed on the 3rd of February 2026 in the western Libyan city of Zintan, where he had been living for years. Report says 4 unidentified gunmen attacked him, including in his home. Though the exact motives and identities of these attackers are still unclear. So these are mostly hired killers that came to that place and took him out. Libya's Attorney General's office has reportedly opened an investigation into the killing. This is according to Anadolu news agency. No official statement has yet been made by the Libyan state itself. And who was Saif al-Islam Gaddafi? He was the second son of Libya's late leader Muammar Gaddafi and was once seen as his father's heir apparent. He played a key role in his father's government, though he never held an official state position, and was influential in diplomacy and public relations. Very important. In 2015, he was sentenced to death in absentia by a Libyan court for his actions during the civil war, a sentence that was controversial and never enforced amid Libya's political fragmentation. In later years, he sought a political comeback, including attempting to re-enter Libya's electoral politics. He wanted to become president again of Libya. He sought to come back and become a leader of some sort within the political space in Libya. So it's not just about, look at what this guy have gone through. Well, some argue that they have no sympathy for him because when his father was leader, he probably did a lot of very, very questionable things. He's not a saint. That's what some would say. So why have pity for somebody like that is not a saint? But with these Europeans are not better either, because these are the same people that we are supposed to listen to. And the fact that they are manipulating our system and turning us against each other is crazy. Because I followed the uprising, albeit as a child or as a very young guy growing up. I followed this revolution, and it was all over the news. Although most of us didn't really know what was going on, it's sad to see what is happening in Libya today. It's so sad to see, and this is why we won and warning our people, mostly in West Africa, because they have not seen the the barbarism of the West. Okay, I mean, we've seen it, but most of them still don't understand what the West can do to you. Most of us still can't understand or appreciate the power of the West, the power particularly of information. The most important aspect of power in international politics and in domestic politics is the control of the media. It is the information control. And this is what Noam Chomsky said in his work, The Manufacture of Consent, Manufacturing Consent, which is a book published, I think, in 1988 or thereabout, with a guy with Edward S. Haman. And the quotation is that he took from a work by Walter Lippmann, who'd made a similar publication in the 1920s that talked about the manufacture of consent. Now, gone are the days where you need, military men to sort of control and the mind of people, states to enforce, regulations in terms of. But now you don't need to do that to control the information. Information control is very important. It's an important aspect. This is why some people believe that some certain group of people around the world are the ones that control X, Y, Z, because you target certain aspects of the society, information, banking and finance, and all. Once you're able to capture those key areas of the state, you have everything within your beck and call. So information is very important, and we in Africa, particularly as far as West Africa is concerned at this point, we have to be very careful by the kind of information we decide we want to consume, by the kind of information we decide we want to see. So the killing of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi and the fact that he has been, completely taken out by rival gangs, and elements, it's crazy. Don't forget to like and share if you have any question in regards to this conversation, the killing of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi by different gangs, as we've seen today in Libya, which happened on the 3rd of February 2025, 2026 in Libya. Don't forget to leave a question. So I'm going to give you guys a history of the overthrow of the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi and what really happened. Don't forget to share this on your story, guys. This is breaking news. Breaking news is an important information, and because Libya is very important. Libya is one of the most important countries in Africa. Now everybody is focusing on the instability and the insecurity going on there, but the oil market there is still booming. People are still taking oil out of Libya. Those areas where you have the oil wells on the coast in Brega, in Ras Lanuf, in Bin Jawad, and on, those places are still secured. In Tripoli, in Set, whether it's in the east or in the west, the oil exploitation is still going on. Now you have French companies and American companies, and even the UAE participating in the looting of Libya. So the UAE is the power block in the west. I think in the east you have the UAE, and in the west you have Turkey. So the UAE is now supporting the renegade General Khalifa Haftar. So this killing of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi happened in the west, where Turkey is now an ally of the government in Tripoli or in Tobruk. So it's very complicated. You have different warlords, different criminal gangs and elements, all running around controlling different. There's this British journalist that traveled to Mexico and wanted to understand how the cartel worked, and he was talking about that anytime a kingpin of one of the major cartels, whether it's in Aloha, whether it's in Guadalajara, like any of the cartels, once you take one out and it's the kingpin, what happens is that the violence level goes up because different gangs will now start fighting for that position to take over power and to control, the market. And you have the emergence of different cartelitos, and cartels, the little cartels everywhere. So what happened is that, it will sort of exacerbate the situation. So let's go back to, my conversation earlier on about Saif al-Islam Gaddafi and the history behind it, and the overthrow of the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. What that has done is that it has led to the proliferation of arms, number one, because for those of us in Sahel and in the western part of West Africa, we are feeling the effect of this because we now have an arms market in Chad, an arms market in Libya, an arms market in northern Nigeria, and on and on and on. We have never seen this level of violence anytime in our history. And now we are dealing with this because the West have decided to go in to destroy Libya, to bomb and destroy Libya for their own benefit. In fact, there was even an argument made that it was the Jewish Nobel literati called Bernard Henri Levy. You guys can check up his name. He was a close friend of the French president at that time. Not Jacques Chirac. You have the one that they sent to jail, and he was the one that convinced him that this is the time or never to intervene in Libya. This is the time or never to do what is best for France, because if I show you the map and you see what is really going on in that corridor, Libya is very important, particularly in the western part of the Mediterranean. And because of the importance of Libya in the Western Med, what has happened is that the French, by the way, let's not forget that France is claiming, what do you call it? A large chunk of the Western Mediterranean and also some parts of, North Africa in terms of our water, in terms of the maritime areas, because of the abundance of gas there. And so is Turkey. Both of them are claiming exclusive economic zone. So if for those of you that are knowledgeable about law of the sea, and this have led to the standoff between Turkey and France on so many occasions. In fact, if you're familiar with the law of the sea, there's a particular incident that involved the French Navy and the Turkish Navy, and we've had this. So these guys are fighting over the maritime routes. They are fighting over gas reserves. And we have abundance of it on the coast of Libya. We have abundance of oil reserves on the coast of Libya and Algeria. And the French were in Algeria for over 130 years. So now that they've been driven out, they're looking for every bit of weakness on the continent. They're looking for every bit of weakness anywhere they can find it, so that they can exploit it, so that they can take advantage of it. So this is the situation that we have found ourselves. So for those Africans, again, I reiterate, that are dancing and jumping from the sky and talking about, oh, this is the time or never to destroy Libya. This is the time or never to come to Nigeria and sort of this is the time. Is the annals history now? Let's move on. So this person is saying he's in the annals of history now. Let's move on. Okay, well, you're saying that we are not supposed to care about Saif al-Islam Gaddafi and we move on. But the situation in Libya is still the same. It has not changed. And Saif al-Islam Gaddafi also told us that if the West comes to Libya with the intention of destroying Libya to benefit themselves, there will be rivers of blood. And the message was not just to the West, it was also to the Libyan people that have been divided and fragmented on ethnic basis, on different sort of affiliations, seeking different interests, and thinking that the destruction of Libya by removing Gaddafi is going to be to their benefit. Well, some people have benefited and profited from it. But look at the situation today. Has it improved? Has it changed significantly? Has it benefited anybody? Absolutely not. And if you look at what happened with the capture of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi during that battle of, of Zintan, is that how they call it? He was captured by the Tuaregs. And the Tuaregs, again, some people say, oh, don't say anything about the Tuareg and the Amazic people. Some of them are also very stubborn. They are very stubborn, and they have accepted. Some of them have actually gone to the extent of accepting weapons and supplies from the West to create problems, like we saw in the northern part of Mali, like we're seeing in Niger today in Aer Nazowak. Okay, with people like Risa Ejibaula. Risa Ejibaula is one of the most prominent figures today in the northern part of Niger, and they are seeking their own. They're seeking Azawad. And historically, let's not also forget that the Tuareg people have been marginalized from the center of power for a very long time. I understand that. But if you also if you trickle down and understand what is going on, the French and the West and the Europeans have always used this division within African societies to play this game of divide and rule. If you are not from Africa, you not know a lot about the Tuareg and the Tubu people and the Difa Arab. There are so many different groups and ethnic groups, and it's a mosaic of different groups in that part of Africa, in the southern part of Libya, in the some part of the eastern part in the western part of Libya, in the southern part of Algeria, in the northern part of Nigeria. Areas. So all these areas are places where these guys are very prominent and powerful, and the French understand the African society better than anybody else. There's no European that can brag about understanding the nuances and the intricacies and the divisions between different African groups in terms of their tribes and ethnicity and affiliations than the French. The French understand the African society better than anybody else. The French understand it better than anybody else, and this is why we need to look. The problem here is, again, you guys need to understand. Some of us in Africa have been warning that this game of divide and rule can never work, and we need to be very careful. So let's look at the 2011 overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. Let's look at the capture of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the civil war that emerged, and we are going to take it bit by bit, petit tapeti. Is that how you say it in French? Yeah, little by little, so we can understand. So the uprising, the Arab Spring, actually started in Tunisia when a street vendor called Mohamed Bouazizi was harassed by a female police officer called Fatima Hamdi Katimov. So for those of you that talk about women's rights in the Arab world and in Africa, and particularly in the Arab Muslim world, in Tunisia, in fact, from inception, because the first president of Tunisia after independence is I forgot his name. He considered himself egalitarian. Okay, let's see, the first president of Tunisia after independence. I forgot his name. Habib Bourguiba. The name is Habib Bourguiba. So after independence, in 1957, Habib Bourguiba became the first, independent president of Tunisia. And because he is worldly, he has schooled in France. He considered himself egalitarian. He encouraged women to join politics. Tunisia is one of those countries where women are not really forced. So basically, and now what we are seeing is the opposite of that. Kaif Said is rooting out everything that Habib Bourguiba did for the country, which Zine Abedin Ben Ali continued on. Okay, Zine Abedin Ben Ali also stayed in power for a very long time, and so Kaif Said now is heavily Islamizing the country and bringing back, whatever you guys think they are doing in Iran or Saudi Arabia. It's the same thing that Kaif Said is doing there, on top of the attempt to root out black people. But this is not the reason why we are here to have this conversation today. Let's go back to the Libyan civil war. And the reason I'm giving you this background is that after the protests had started in Tunisia in 2011, after a street vendor called Mohamed Bouazizi was angry that a female police officer, Fatima Hamdi Katimov, have slapped him across the face, and he couldn't believe that a woman would do that to him, a female police officer. It was an assault on his dignity, and the pressure, the economic pressure on him and a lot of Tunisians at that time, when Zine Abedin Ben Ali and his wife and his cronies were looting and pillaging the country, and decided to set himself ablaze. He poured paint on himself and lit himself ablaze and lit the entire region ablaze metaphorically. And this is how the Arab Spring started. And then when it started, people in Egypt are like, hang on a second, look at little Tunisia. Tunisia could do this to the leader, and Ben Ali and his wife fled to Saudi Arabia. We can do it as well. We can do it as well. And that was how the uprising also started in Egypt, because the Egyptians are very proud people. Egypt considered itself, they call, when you say Egypt, they say this is Dunya, this is the mother of the world. So if Tunisia, little Tunisia can do this, why can't we? And this is how it all started as well in Egypt, and spread to Libya. And Gaddafi at that time had warned that there's a lot of Al-Qaeda elements in the country. He said that this was, this is not why, this is not advisable at this point. And the French saw an opening, they saw an opportunity. Look at Gaddafi. Gaddafi has supported, and it's not just France, it's also England, by the way, because during the Irish rebellion against the British, Gaddafi supported them. If you look at the Lockerbie bomber, Abdul Basil al-Magrahi, I know some of these names. Abdul Basil al-Magrahi is of Libyan origin, and they accuse him of being behind the Lockerbie bomber in the 80s. And and they said that he was, and in fact, he was kept in prison there for a very long time until a deal was did with the Libyan government, and he was released. And it was 2 years or a year after he came back to Libya that the uprising started in Libya. So you can check up the name Abdul Basil al-Magrahi and the Lockerbie bombing, which they accuse. So let's look at the Lockerbie bombing. You can check up the Lockerbie bombing, which occurred on December 21st, 1988, involving the destruction of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, resulting in the death of over 270 people, making it the deadliest terrorist attack in the UK history. So on December 21st, 1988, Pan Am 103, a Boeing 747 named Clipper made of the seas, was en route from London Heathrow to New York City when it exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland, approximately 38 minutes after takeoff. The explosion was caused by a bomb placed in the aircraft cargo hold, which created a 20-inch hole in the fuel sage. The wreckage fell over a wide area, killing all 259 passengers and crew members on board, as well as 11 residents of Lockerbie. So this is what happened, with the Lockerbie bomber Abdul Basil al-Magrahi. So the investigation and legal proceedings, the investigation into the bombing was extensive, involving multiple international agencies, including the FBI, Scottish authorities. It was one of the largest and most complex investigations in aviation history, with over 10,000 interviews conducted across 16 countries and the recovery of 319 tons of wreckage. In 1991, the US and the UK issued arrest warrant for 2 Libyan nationals, Abdel Basset al-Magrahi and Lamin Khalifa Fiman. After years of negotiations, the UN sanctions, the two were handed over for trial in 1999. In 2001, al-Magrahi was convicted of 270 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, while Fiman was acquitted. So basically, this is the history behind it. By the way, hey, what's going on, Kathleen?
Let's go. Are you gonna take my streak?
I hope so. Yeah, so like I said, it was because of that and other issues that the Libyan leadership had with, in most of these Western countries, that sort of encouraged them. They said, this is the opportunity to take him out. And that's how they came to Libya. So the reason I'm giving you guys all this background is for, for a clear understanding of how all of this started, and so the Libyan Civil War, also known as the First Libyan Civil War and the Libyan Revolution, was an armed conflict fought in 2011 in the North African country of Libya between forces loyal to Colonel Muammar Gaddafi and rebel groups attempting to oust his government. The war was preceded by protests in Zawiya. Yeah, this is where it all started, in the town of Al Zawiya on August 8, 2009, and finally ignited by protests in Benghazi beginning on 15 February 2011, which led to clashes with security forces who fired on crowd. The protests escalated into a rebellion, spreading across the country, with the forces of opposition to Gaddafi establishing an interim government body, the National Transition Council. And at the end of the day, like, they talk about this whole National Transition Council, what has it really led to? Fragmented society. It's led to a fragmented society, and we are seeing, these rebels now being emboldened. I mean, there's no central of command. Now you have on the eastern part, on the eastern part of Libya, you have forces loyal to renegade General Khalifa Haftar in Benghazi, and then in Tripoli you have other forces which is supported by Turkey. So it's a crazy expedition. This is what we need to take a look at. So NATO decided the bombing campaign, imposed a no-fly zone on Libya, and came in and bombed the country. And all the promises they made of making Libya a better place, of democratizing Libya, of removing the rights of or stripping away Islamic Sharia law from the country, and so on and so forth. All of that has not materialized. What we have seen today is Libya getting sunken down into chaos with different rebel groups and jihadist groups and different warlords controlling different parts of the country. And I mean, people talk about migration to Europe and how that has affected Europe and so on and so forth. It's the destruction of Libya. The destruction of Libya have led us to this point where people are now saying, what have we done to Libya? And all those people that gave those wonderful advice at that time and gave us 10 million reasons why they should invade and intervene in Libya, we're not seeing them today. They say, oh, well, you can't blame us. We have seen release from the Epstein file, how they were planning to share the loot in Libya, how they had a plan beforehand and say, which country can we go to and take out more gold? So this guy is sinister. You see it. The classified document with Hillary Clinton laughing and saying, oh, we went there, we saw and we unalived him and took his head. These are the people we are dealing with. So anytime the West come and then use the back channel to give you this sort of messaging about their good and benign reasons of going and intervening in any country, why should anybody accept it? I don't think we should accept it. I don't think anybody should accept it. And we have seen that already with the taking out of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi. Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget to like and share. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube, Savak Media Network is the YouTube channel. We're available across all platforms as well. If you're watching this video on YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment, share this video to different groups, and we'll keep the conversation going as well in our next stream. So a recap of what I've just said, the son of the erstwhile Libyan leader Saif al-Islam Gaddafi have been shot dead by assailants in the town of Zintan in western Libya. The motive for this is not yet known. The assailant's identity is not yet known. And this is where we draw to a close. This is the end of the stream, basically. So don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to share. And I'll see you in